We have finished part 4 and we are going on to part 5. And I'm going to tell you what we finished with so we can continue on. Because we just started chapter 17. We got through the pie eating contest. So.
Nope. Oh my god.
Hey.
That'd be nice. I'm
Okay.
trying to make sure she's wondering.
Just let her be. Let her be.
She's just wondering what I'm doing.
Yes, she is. Dogs are curious.
I'm folding my clothes.
She's going to say, let me help.
No. You're a dog.
Hey, come here. Come here. Stay over here so he can fold his clothes. Come here.
Including all the
What's
things.
in that other basket?
Blanket, 2 blankets, and...
Oh, those are my blankets?
Yep.
Nope, you don't need these. No, you don't need to dump over my garbage can and try to eat the Q-tips. Thank you very much. Stop it. No. No. Here, go chew that. Chew it. There you go. I'll keep her occupied with that. She dumped over my little garbage can and tried to eat Q-tips. I don't know what the session is with Q-tips, but yeah. Anywho, I am Lady Rain, and we are on to part 5. Like I said, we just got done with the pie eating contest. So, Teddy didn't like the ending of the story. Vern didn't really like the ending. They didn't like the idea that they had to use their imagination. That ending sucks, Teddy said sadly. That's why I didn't want to tell it. And that was Gordy. You could have made it so he shot his father and ran away and joined the Texas Rangers, Teddy said. How about that? Chris and I exchanged a glance. Chris raised one shoulder in a barely perceptible shrug. I guess so, I said. Hey, you got any new Lidio stories, Gordy? Not just now. Maybe I'll think of some. I didn't want to upset Teddy. What? What are you laughing at?
Oh, I thought that was something like from Spy Kids 3.
Oh.
Well, I'm their uncle.
I thought it was something that she was doing.
No, that was me laughing.
Okay. Alright. I didn't want to upset Teddy, but I wasn't very interested in checking out what was, there we go, happening in Lidio either. Sorry you didn't go for this one better. Nah, it was good, Teddy said. Right up to the end, it was good. All that puking was really cool. Yeah, it was a gross story. Yeah, that was cool. Really gross, Vern agreed. But Teddy's right about the ending. It was sort of a jip. Yeah, I said and sighed. Chris stood up. Let's do some walking, he said. It was still bright daylight. The sky was hot, steely blue, and our shadows had begun to trail out long. I remember that as a kid, September days always seemed to end much too soon, catching me by surprise. You know, my body is trying to tell me, you can't read. Well, guess what? I'm going to anyway. Yes, they're on their way to Harlow. It was as if something inside my heart expected it to always be June, with daylight lingering in the sky until almost 9:30. What time is it, Gordy? I looked at my watch and was astonished to see it was after 5. Yeah, let's go, Teddy said. But let's make camp before dark. So we can get wood and stuff? I'm getting hungry, too. 6:30, Chris promised. Okay with you guys? It was. We started to walk again, using the cinders beside the tracks now. Soon the river was so far behind we couldn't even hear the sound. Mosquitoes hummed, and I slapped one off my neck. Vern and Teddy were walking up ahead, working out some sort of complicated comic book trade. Chris was beside me, hands in his pockets. Shirt slapping against his knees and thighs like an apron. I apologize. I don't know why I'm yawning. I got the same way earlier. I got some Winstons, he said. Hawked him off my own man's dresser. Want a piece for after supper? Yeah, that's boss. That's when a cigarette tastes best, Chris said, after supper. Right? We walked in silence for a while. That's a really fine story, Chris said suddenly. That's just a little dumb they're just a little dumb to understand. A little too dumb to understand. Oh my god. Yeah, that's definitely Friends for you. No, it's not that hot. It's a mumbler. That's what you always say. Don't give me that bullshit you don't believe. Are you gonna write it down? The story? Okay, I'm gonna just slap myself. Are you gonna write it down? The story?
I got that from the
Probably,
Muppets.
but not for a while. I can't write them down right after I tell them. It'll keep. What Vern said about the ending being a jip? Yeah, Chris laughed. Life's a jip, you know it? I mean, look at us. Nah, we have a great time. Sure, Chris said. All the fucking time, you wet. I laughed. Chris did too. Alright, which one of you guys is yawning?
Not me.
They come out of you like little bubblers out of soda pop, he said after a while. What does? But I thought I knew what he meant. The stories. That really bugs me, man. It's like you could tell a million stories and still only get the ones on top. You'll be a great writer someday, Gordy. Nah, I don't think so. Yeah, you will. Maybe you'll even write about us if you ever get hard up for material. Have to be pretty fucking hard up, I said. I gave him an elbow. I gave him the elbow. There was another period of silence, and then he asked suddenly, You ready for school? I shrugged. Whoever was. You got a little excited thinking about going back, seeing your friends. You were curious about your new teachers and what they would be like. Pretty young things just out of teacher's college that you could rag, or some old top kick that had been there since the Alamo. In a funny way, you could even get excited about the long, droning classes, because as the summer vacation neared its end, you sometimes got bored enough to believe you could learn something. But summer boredom was nothing like the school boredom that always sets in by the end of the second week. And by the beginning of the third week, you got down to the real business. Boy. Could you hit Stinky Fisk in the back of the head with your art gun? Art gum. Ha! Art gum while the teacher was putting the principal exports of South America on the board? How many good loud squeaks could you get off on the varnished surface of your desk if your hands were really sweaty? Could you cut the loudest farts in the locker room while changing up for phys ed? How many girls could you get to play Who Goose the Moose during lunch hour? Higher learning, baby. Junior high, Chris said. And you know what, Gordy? By next June, we'll all be quits. What are you talking about? Why would that happen? It's not going to be like grammar school, that's why. You'll be in the college courses, me and Teddy and Vern we'll all be in the shop courses playing pocket pool with the rest of the retards, making ashtrays and birdhouses. That's why I have racial slurs. Did I put racial slurs in there? I need to double check. Did I put racial slurs in there? No, I said grotesque topics. Derogatory and racial slurs. Okay, now it's in there. I will fix it. I will fix it. Oh no, I have all kinds of disclaimers. Playing pocket pool with the rest. Oh, making ashtrays and birdhouses. Vern might even have to go into remedial. You'll meet a lot of new guys, smart guys. That's just the way it works, Gordy. That's how they got it set up. Meet a lot of pussies is what you mean, I said. He gripped my arm. No, man, don't say that. Don't even think that. They'll get your stories. Not like Vern and Teddy. Fuck the stories. I'm not going in with a lot of pussies. No, sir. If you don't, then you're an asshole. What's asshole about wanting to be with your friends? He looked at me thoughtfully, as if deciding whether or not to tell me something. We had slowed down. Vern and Teddy had pulled almost half a mile ahead. The sun, lower now, came at us through the overlacing trees in broken, dusty shafts, turning everything gold. But it was a tawdry gold, dime store gold, if you can dig that. The tracks stretched ahead of us in the gloom that was just starting to gather. They seemed almost to twinkle. Star pricks of light stood out on them here and there, as if some nutty rich guy, masquerading as a common laborer, had decided to embed a diamond on the steel every 60 yards or so. It was still hot. The street rolled off us, slicking our bodies. What is he listening to?
A YouTube video.
Okay. It's asshole if your friends can drag you down, Chris said finally. I know about you and your folks. They don't give a shit about you. Your big brother was the one they cared about. Like my dad, when Fran got thrown in the stockade in Portsmouth. That was when he started always being mad at us at us other kids and hitting us all the time. Your dad doesn't beat on you, but maybe that's even worse. He's got you asleep. You could tell him you were enrolling in the fucking shop division, and you know what he'd do? He'd turn to the next page in his paper and say, well, that's nice, Gordon. Go ask your mother what's for dinner. And don't try to tell me different. I've met him. I didn't try to tell him different. It's scary to find out that someone else, even a friend, knows just how things are with you. You're just a kid, Gordy. Gee, thanks, Dad. I wish the fuck I was your father, he said angrily. You wouldn't go around talking about taking these stupid shop courses if I was.
Yeah, I know. I saw it.
It's like God gave you something, all those stories you can make up, and he said, this is what we got for you, kid. Try not to lose it. But kids lose everything unless somebody looks out for them. And if your folks are too fucked up to do it, then maybe I ought to. His face looked like he was expecting me to take a swing at him. It was set and unhappy with a green-gold late afternoon light. He had broken the cardinal rule for kids in those days.
Mom,
take it away.
Excuse
She's not
me.
even supposed to have the Q-tip. How'd she get the Q-tip?
Papa, it was in the paint.
I just picked it all up. Give it to me.
Give me
Give it to me. No.
You can put it in the drawer.
Table. Nope, table. No. What do you mean put it what in the drawer? Put what in the drawer?
The decks. Or in the
Put what in there? No, it doesn't fit in a drawer. It's too tall, honey.
Or maybe underneath your decks?
No, I want it there so the dog can't get it. Thank you.
You can do this.
Now what do you have? What is with you tonight? You've been doing this all day.
Excuse me, Peeps.
Where's your toy? You don't need cupcake papers. You don't need Q-tips. No. What are you trying to get into? You are just a mischievous little snot. Ugh. Pitweiler to the max of hyperness. Good Lord.
You can't.
He had broken the cardinal rule for kids in those days. You could say anything about another kid. You could rake him to the dogs and back. But you didn't say a bad word ever about his mom and dad. That was the fabled automatic. The same way, not inviting your Catholic friends home to dinner on Friday unless you checked first to make sure you weren't having meat on the fabled automatic. If a kid ranked out your mom and dad, you had to feed him some knuckles. I'm not moving it. Leave it there.
Oh,
I will talk about that later. I'm not doing it right now.
After you're done reading.
I'm not doing it
Finish.
tonight. I am not doing it tonight. Maybe I will work on it tomorrow, but I am not going to sit here and try figuring out sewing tonight. It is too late in the day. You can be mad.
No, I was thinking of using that and kind of a sheet of this onto my body.
What the heck just happened?
I was using the microwave.
Why didn't you tell me that?
I only just got introduced to that and I forgot. No, I'll do it.
Go switch the thing.
I was trying to like for you.
Good Lord. I don't. Yes, I have to watch what I use on my wattage. I gotta have the electric looked at. Those stories you tell, they're no good to anybody but you, Gordy. If you go along with us just because you don't want the gang to break up, you'll wind up just another grunt making C's to get to the teams. You'll get to high and make the same fucking shop course and take the same fucking shop courses and throw erasers and pull your meat along with the rest of the grunts. Get detentions, fucking suspensions, and after a while, all you care about is getting a car so you can take some skag to the hops or down to the fucking Twig Bridges Tavern. Then you'll knock her up, spend the rest of your life in the mill or some fucking shoe shop in Auburn, or maybe even up to Hillcrest plucking chickens. And that pie story will never get written down. Nothing will get written down. Because you'll just be another wise guy with shit for brains.
I don't want to say people's names while you're streaming. Are they at work?
Yeah.
Where are they?
At work.
Okay.
Chris Chambers was 12 when he had said all that to me. But while he was saying it, his face crumpled and folded into something older, oldest, ageless. He spoke tonelessly, colorlessly, and nevertheless, what he said struck terror into my bowels. It was as if he lived that whole life already, and that life where they tell you to step right up and spin the wheel of fortune, and it spins so pretty, and the guy steps on the pedal and it comes up double zeros, house number, everybody loses. They give you a free pass, and then they turn on the rain machine. Pretty funny, huh? A joke even Vern Tessio could appreciate. He grabbed my naked arm and his fingers closed tight. They dug grooves into my flesh. They ground at the bones. His eyes were hooded and dead. So dead, man, that he might have just fallen out of his own coffin. I know what people think of my family in this town. I know what they think of me and what they expect. Nobody even asked me if I took the milk money that time. I just got a 3-day vacation. Did you take it? I asked. I had never asked him before, and if you had told me I ever would, I would have called you crazy. The words came out in a little dry bullet. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I took it. He was silent for a moment, looking ahead at Teddy and Vern. You know I took it, Teddy knew. Everybody knew. Even Vern knew, I think. I started to deny it, and then closed my mouth. He was right. No matter what I might have said to my mother and father about how a person was supposed to be innocent until proved guilty, I had known. And then maybe I was sorry and tried to give it back, Chris said. My eyes widening. You tried to give it back? Maybe, I said. Just maybe. And maybe I took it to old lady Simmons and told her, and maybe the money was all there, but I got a 3-day vacation anyway, because the money never showed up. And maybe the next week, old lady Simmons had this brand new skirt on when she came to school. I stared at Chris, speechless with horror. He smiled at me, but it was a crimped, terrible smile that never touched his eyes. Just maybe, he said. But I remembered the new skirt. a light brown paisley, sort of full. I remember thinking that it made old Lady Simmons look younger, almost pretty. Chris, how much was that milk money? Almost $7. Christ, I whispered. So, just say that I stole the milk money, and then old Lady Simmons stole it from me. Just suppose I told that story. Me, Chris Chambers. Kid brother of Frank Chambers and Eyeball Chambers. You think anybody would have believed it? No way, I whispered. Jesus Christ. He smiled, his wintry, awful smile. And do you think that bitch would have dared try something like that if it had been one of those douchebags from up on the View that had taken the milk money? No, I said. Yeah, if it had been one of them, Simmons would have said, "'Kay, we'll forget it this time. But we're gonna spank your wrist real hard, and if you ever do it again, we'll have to spank both wrists." But me? Maybe she had her eye on that skirt for a long time. Anyway, she saw her chance and she took it. I was the stupid one for even trying to give the money back. But I never thought that a teacher. Oh, who gives a fuck anyway? Why am I even talking about it? He swiped his arm angrily across his eyes, and I realized he was almost crying. Chris, I said, why don't you go into the college courses? You're smart enough. They decide all that in the office. And in their smart little conferences, the teachers, they sit around in this big circle jerk, and all they say is, yeah, right. All they give a fuck about is whether you behaved yourself in grammar school and what the town thinks of your family. All they're deciding is whether or not you'll contaminate all those precious college course douchebags. Both, but maybe I'll try to work myself up. I don't know if I could do it, but I might try. Hi! Because I want to get out of Castle Rock and go to college and never see my old man or any of my brothers again. I want to go someplace where nobody knows me and I don't have any black marks against me when I start. But I don't know if I can do it. Why not? People drag you down. Who? I asked, thinking he must mean the teachers or adult monsters like Mrs. Simmons, who had wanted a new skirt, or maybe his brother Eyeball, who hung around with Ace and Billy and Charlie and the rest, or maybe his own mom and dad. But he said, your friends drag you down, Gordy. Don't you know that? He pointed to Vern and Teddy, who were standing and waiting for us to catch up. They were laughing about something. In fact, Vern was just about busting a gut. Your friends do. They're like drowning guys that are holding onto your legs. You can't save them. You can only drown with them. Come on, you fucking slowpokes, Vern shouted, still laughing. Yeah, coming, Chris called, and before I could say anything else, he began to run. I ran too. But he caught up to them before I could catch up to him. Good Lord. We went another mile and then decided to camp for the night. There was still some daylight left, but nobody really wanted to use it. We were pooped from the scene at the dump and from the scare on the train trestle. But it was more than that. We were in Harlow now, in the woods. Somewhere up ahead was a dead kid, probably mangled and covered with flies, maggots too, by this time. Nobody wanted to get too close to him with the night coming on. I had read somewhere in an Algernon Blackwood story, I think, that a guy's ghost hangs out around his dead body until that body is given a decent Christian burial. And there's no way I wanted to wake up in the night and confront the glowing, disembodied ghost of Ray Brower. moaning and gibbering and floating among the dark and rustling pines. By stopping here, we figured there had to be at least 10 miles between us and him. And of course, all 4 of us knew there were no such thing as ghosts. But 10 miles seems just about far enough in case what everybody knew was wrong. Vern, Chris, and Teddy gathered wood and got a modest little campfire going on the bed of cinders. Chris scraped a bare patch all around the fire. The woods were powder dry, and he didn't want to take any chances. While they were doing that, I sharpened some sticks and made what my brother Denny used to call pioneer drumsticks. Lumps of hamburger pushed onto the ends of green branches. The 3 of them laughed and bickered over their woodcraft, which was almost nil. There was the Castle Rock Boy Scout troop, but most of the kids who hung around our vacant lot considered it to be an organization made up mostly of pussies, arguing about whether it was better to cook over flames or over coals, a moot point. We were too hungry to wait for coals. Whether dried moss would work as kindling, what they would do if they used up all the matches before they got the fire to stay lit. Teddy claimed he could make a fire by rubbing 2 sticks together. Chris claimed he was so full of shit he squeaked. They didn't have to try. Vern got the small pile of twigs and dry moss to catch from the second match. The day was perfectly still, and there was no wind to puff out the light. We all took turns feeding the thin flames until they began to grow stouter on wrist chucks of wood fetched from an old deadfall some 30 yards into the forest. When the flames began to die back a little, I stuck the sticks holding the pioneer drumsticks firmly into the ground at an angle over the fire. We sat around watching them as they shimmered and dripped and finally began to brown. Our stomachs made pre-dinner conversation. 3 pounds of meat. Wow. $2.13 for meat, buns, cokes. That's a lot of stuff for $2.13. Unable to wait until they were really cooked, we each took one of them, stuck it in a roll, and yanked the hot stick out of the center. They were charred outside, raw inside, and totally delicious. We wolfed them down and wiped the grease from our mouths with our bare arms. Chris opened his pack and took out a tin Band-Aids box. The pistol was way at the bottom of his pack. And because he hadn't told Vern and Teddy, I guess it was to be our secret. He opened and gave each of us a battered Winston. We lit them with flaming twigs from the fire, then leaned back, men of the world, watching the cigarette smoke drift away into the soft twilight. None of us inhaled because we might cough, and that would mean a day or 2 of ragging from the others. It was pleasant enough just to drag and blow, hawking into the fire to hear the sizzle. That was the summer I learned how you can pick out someone who is just learning to smoke. If you're new at it, you spit a lot. We were feeling good. We smoked the Winstons down to the filters and tossed them into the fire. Nothing like a smoke after a meal, Teddy said. Fucking A, Vern agreed. Crickets had started to hum in the green gloom. I looked up the lane of sky visible through the railroad cut and saw that the blue was now bruising toward purple. Seeing the outrider of twilight made me feel sad and calm at the same time. Brave, but not really brave. Comfortably lonely. We tromped down a flat place in the underbrush beside the embankment and laid out our bedrolls. Then for an hour or so, we fed the fire and talked. The kind of talk you can never quite remember once you get past 15 and discover girls. We talked about who was the best dragger in Castle Rock, if Boston could maybe stay out of the cellar this year. And about the summer just passed. Teddy told about the time he had been at White's Beach in Brunswick, and some kid had hit his head while diving off the float and almost drowned. We discussed at some length the relative merits of the teachers we had had. We agreed that Mr. Brooks was the biggest pussy in Castle Rock's elementary. He would just about cry if you sassed him back. On the other hand, there was Mrs. Cott, pronounced Cody. Oh, Mrs. Coty. Okay. She was just about the meanest bitch God had ever set down on the earth. Vern said he'd heard she hit a kid so hard 2 years ago that the kid almost went blind. I looked at Chris, wondering if he would say anything about Miss Simmons, but he didn't say anything at all. And he didn't see me looking at him. He was looking at Vern and nodding soberly at Vern's story. We didn't talk about Ray Brower as the dark drew down, but I was thinking about him. There's something horrible and fascinating about the way dark comes to the woods. It's coming unsoftened by headlights and street lights and house lights or neon. It comes with no mother's voice, calling for her kids to leave off and come on in now to herald it. If you're used to the town, the coming of the dark in the woods seems like a natural disaster. More like a natural disaster than a natural phenomenon. Crosses like the Castle Rock rises in the spring. And as I thought about the body of Ray Brower in this light, or lack of it, what I felt was now queasiness or fear that he would suddenly appear before us, a green and gibbering banshee whose purpose was to drive us back the way we had come before we could disturb its place. But a sudden and unexpected wash of pity, that he would be so alone and so defenseless in the dark, that was now coming over our side of the earth. If something wanted to eat on him, it would. His mother wasn't here to stop that from happening, and neither was his father, nor Jesus Christ in the company of all the saints. He was dead. He was all alone, flung off the railroad tracks and into the ditch. And I realized that if I didn't stop thinking about it, I was going to cry. So I told a Ladio story, made up on the spot, not very good. And when it ended, as most of my Ladio stories did, with one lone American dog face coughing out a dying declaration of patriotism and love for the girl back home into the sad and wise face of the platoon sergeant. It was not the white, scared face of some PFC from Castle Rock or White River Junction I saw in my mind's eye, but the face of a much younger boy, already dead, his eyes closed, his features troubled, a rill of blood running from the left corner of his mouth to his jawline. And in the back of him, instead of the shattered shops and churches of my Ladio dreamscape, I saw only dark forest and the cinder railway bed bulking against the starry sky like a prehistoric burial mound. Blah, blah, blah. I came awake in the middle of the night, disoriented, wondering why it was so chilly in my bedroom. Who had left the windows open? Denny, maybe. I had been dreaming of Denny, sometimes about body surfing at Harrison State Park, but it had been 4 years ago that we had done that. This wasn't my room. This was someplace else. Somebody was holding me in a mighty bear hug. Somebody else was pressed against my back, and a shadowy third was crouched beside me, head crooked in a listening attitude. What the fuck? I asked in honest puzzlement. A long, drawn-out groan in answer. It sounded like Vern. That brought things into focus, and I remembered where I was. But what was everybody doing awake in the middle of the night? Or Had I only been asleep for seconds? No, that couldn't be, because a thin sliver of moon was floating dead center in an inky sky. Don't let it get me, Vern gibbered. I swear I'll be a good boy. I won't do nothing bad. I'll put the ring up before I take a piss. I'll. With some astonishment, I realized that I was listening to a prayer, or at least to Vern Tessio's equivalent of a prayer. I sat bolt upright, scared. Chris? Shut up, Vern, Chris said. He was the one crouching and listening. It's nothing. Oh, yes, it is, Teddy said ominously. It's something. What is? I asked. I was still sleepy and disoriented, unstrung from my place in space and time. It scared me that I had come in late on whatever had developed. Too late to defend myself properly, maybe. Then, as if to answer my question, a long and a hollow scream rose languidly from the woods. It was the sort of scream you might expect from a woman dying in extreme agony and extreme fear. Oh, dear to Jesus, Fern whimpered, his voice high and filled with tears. He reapplied the bear hug that had awakened me, making it hard for me to breathe, and adding to my own terror. I threw him loose with an effort, but he scrambled right back beside me like a puppy who can't think of any place else to go. It's that Brower kid, Teddy whispered hoarsely. His ghost out walking in the woods. Oh, God, Vern screamed. Apparently, not crazy about the idea at all. I promise I won't hawk no more dirty books out of Dolly's market. I promise I won't give my carrots to the dog no more. He floundered there, wanting to bribe God with anything but unable to think of anything really good in the extremity of his fear. I won't smoke no more unfiltered cigarettes. I won't say no bad swears. I won't put my bazooka in the offering plate. I won't. Shut up, Vern, Chris said. And beneath his usual authoritative toughness, I could hear the hollow boom of awe. I wondered if his arms and back and belly were as stiff with goose flesh as my own were, and if the hair on the nape of his neck was trying to stand up in hackles as mine was. Vern's voice dropped to a whisper as he continued to expand the reforms he planned to institute if God would only let him live through this night. It's a bird, isn't it? I asked Chris. No, at least I don't think so. I think it's a wildcat. My dad says they scream bloody murder when they're getting ready to mate. Sounds like a woman, doesn't it? Yeah, I said. My voice hitched in the middle of the word, and 2 ice cubes broke off in the gap. But no woman could scream that loud, Chris said, and then added helplessly, Could she, Gordy? It's his ghost, Teddy whispered again. His eyeglasses reflected the moonlight in weak, somehow dreamy smears. I'm gonna go look for it. I don't think he was serious, but we took no chances. When he started to get up, Chris and I hauled him back down. Perhaps we were too rough with him, but our muscles had been turned to cables with fear. Let me up, fuckheads, Teddy hissed, struggling. If I say I want to look for it, then I'm going to go look for it. I want to see it. I want to see the ghost. I want to see if... The wild sobbing cry rose into the night again, cutting the air like a knife with a crystal blade, freezing us with our hands on Teddy. If he'd been a flag, we would have looked like that picture of the Marines claiming Iwo Jima. The screams climbed with a crazy ease through octave after octave, finally reaching a glassy, freezing edge. It hung there for a moment and then whirled back down again, disappearing into an impossible bass register that buzzed like a monstrous honeybee. That was followed by a burst of what sounded like a mad laughter. And then there was silence again. Jesus H. bald-headed Christ, Teddy whispered. And he talked no more of going into the woods to see what was making that screaming noise. All four of us huddled together, and I thought of running. I doubt if I was the only one. If we had been tenting in Vern's field, where our folks thought we were, we probably would have run. But Castle Rock was too far, and the thought of trying to run across the trestle in the dark made my blood freeze. Running deeper into Harlow and closer to the corpse of Ray Brower was equally unthinkable. We were stuck. If there was a haunt out there in the woods, what my dad called a goosalum, and it wanted us, it would probably get us. Chris proposed we keep a guard, and everyone was agreeable to that. We flipped for watches, and Vern got the first one. I got the last one. Vern sat up cross-legged by the husk of the campfire, while the rest of us lay down again. We huddled together like sheep. I was positive that sleep would be impossible, but I did sleep, a light, uneasy sleep that skimmed through unconsciousness like a sub with its periscope up. My half-sleeping dreams were populated with wild cries that may have been real or might have only been products of my imagination. I saw, or thought I saw, something white and shapeless steal through the trees, like a grotesquely ambulatory bedsheet. At last, I slipped into something I knew was a dream. Chris and I were swimming at White's Beach, a gravel pit in Brunswick that had been turned into a miniature lake when the gravel diggers struck water. It was where Teddy had seen the kid hit his head and almost drown. In my dream, we were out over our heads, stroking lazily along, with a hot July sun blazing down. From behind us, on the floor, came cries and shouts and yells of laughter as kids climbed, dived, and climbed and were pushed. I could hear the empty kerosene drums that held the flat up clanging and booming together. The sound not unlike those of church bells, which are so solemn and completely emptily profound. Blah, blah, blah. On the sand and gravel beach, oiled bodies lay face down on blankets. Little kids with buckets squatted on the verge of the water, or sat happily flipping muck into their hair with plastic shovels, and teenagers clustered in grinning groups watching the young girls promenade endlessly back and forth in pairs and trios, never alone. The secret places of their bodies wrapped in Jansen tank suits. People walked up the hot sand on the balls of their feet, wincing to the snack bar. They came back with chips, devil dogs, Red Ball popsicles. Mrs. Cody drifted past us on an inflatable rubber raft. She was laying on her back, dressed in her typical September to June school uniform, a gray two-piece suit with a thick sweater inside of a blouse under the jacket, a flower pinned over one almost non-existent breast, thick support hose, the color of Canada mints on her legs. Her black old lady's high-heeled shoes were trailing in the water, making small V's. Her hair was blue-rinsed, like my mother's, and done up in those tight, medicinal-smelling cork-spring curls. Her glasses flashed brutally in the sun. "Watch your step, boy," she said. "Watch your step, or I'll hit you hard enough to strike you blind. I can do that. I've been given that power by the school board. Now, Mr. Chambers, mending wall, if you please, by road." I tried to give the money back, Chris said. Oh, Lady Simmons said okay, but she took it. Do you hear me? She took it. Now what are you going to do about it? Are you going to whack her blind? Mending wall, Mr. Chambers, if you please, by road. Chris threw up a despairing glance, as if to say, "Didn't I tell you it would be this way?" and then began to tread water. He began, something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it. And then his head went under, his reciting mouth filling with water. He popped back up crying, "Help me, Gordy, help me." There he was dragged under again. Looking into the clear water, I could see two bloated, naked corpses holding his ankles. One was Vern and the other was Teddy, and their open eyes were as blank and pupilless as the eyes of Greek statues. Their small, prepubescent penises floated limply up from their distended bellies, like albino strands of kelp. Chris's head broke water again. He held one hand. "What are you eating?" "No, get back here. What are you eating?" "Stop eating stuff that doesn't belong to you." "Okay, brat." Good gracious. Chris's head broke water again. He held one hand up limply to me and voiced a screaming, womanish cry that rose and rose, ululating in the hot, sunny summer air. I looked wildly toward the beach, but nobody had heard. The lifeguard, his bronzed, athletic body. "What are you eating off my chair? Stop it. There ain't nothing there. It's my chair. Stop. It's my chair. There's nothing there for you to eat. It's a chair. Don't eat my chair." The lifeguard, his bronzed athletic body lolling attractively on the seat at the top of his whitewashed cruciform wooden tower, just went on smiling down at a girl in the red bathing suit. Chris's scream turned it. "What is that? Hey, what is that? What was it? Oh, you want this? Okay, I'll throw it. Oh, can you get it? It's inside. Can you get it? Get it. Get it. I want to see if you can figure it out. I'll take you out in a second." Chris's screams turned into a bubbling, water-choked gurgle as the corpses pulled him under again, and as they dragged him down the black water, I could see his rippling, distorted eyes turned up to me in a pleading agony. I could see his white starfish hands held helplessly up to the sun-burnished roof of the water. But instead of diving down and trying to save him, I stroked madly for the shore, or at least a place where the water would not be over my head. Before I could get there, before I could even get close, I felt a soft, rotted, implacable hand wrap itself around my calf and begin to pull. A scream built up in my chest, but before I could utter it, the dream washed away into a grainy facsimile of reality. It was Teddy with his hand on my leg. He was shaking me awake. It was my watch. Still half in the dream, almost talking in my sleep, I asked him thickly, "You alive, Teddy?" "No, I'm dead, and you're a black nigger," he said crossly. It dispelled the last of the dream. I sat up by the campfire, and Teddy lay down. Wow, what a mouth. "Hey, what's your problem?" "Why didn't you get it? It's right here in the basket. See? Right here."
Man, I hope my check comes in tomorrow.
"I don't know. They said a week, and it hasn't been a week."
What day of the week is it?
"I don't know."
I hope it's here before trick or treat.
"Why?"
I want to buy candy.
Ah. You don't like our idea?
What is your idea?
We got spider stickers and vampire teeth that they each get to pick one.
No candy?
No, because nowadays not every kid can have candy. Give me that.
Do you want your house egg? It's how you get your house egg. And you are coming out.
You want this one? It's soft cloth. It ain't going nowhere. I can't do anything with it. Well, you're the one that threw it there. It's behind. It's underneath you, you torque. It's underneath her belly. And she had to do a complete circle. Oh. I gotta take a few minutes. Hey, what? Mwah! Okay, she is not going to let me read anymore. We are up to 20. I'm going to stop there. She's decided I am not going to read anymore tonight. I know it's a little shorter than normal, but thank you all for sticking with me. I know it wasn't a long one, but we will read tomorrow morning still again. So probably 10 o'clock-ish. So I will let y'all know. But I will let y'all know. Thank you for sticking with me. I will talk to you soon. I'm going to go play with her because if not, she's going to eat me. So, y'all, not really. But y'all, have a good night. Love y'all. Thank you again. We'll see you later. Bye.